Welcome back, Sports to the Max. I love talking fitness. Stephanie and Laura are in studio with me, and they just opened Studio 6 in Hopkins. And they're both clients of Hopkins Health and Wellness, I just found out as well, too, huh?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. Fitness to me is something that, the way I see it is there's a lot of addiction in this world, and we think of that as a bad word. But there are healthy addictions, not obsessions, but at least where you feel that you want to do it every day. And I believe you can get addicted to fitness in a good way, in the best possible scenario. Maybe that's the wrong term to use, addicted, but you know what I mean. And so I always want to further the cause of fitness because I believe that people that work out are happier and healthier and have more self-esteem. And you guys have a place there in Hopkins that caters to just that, a little bit different than traditional or how I would work out, but I find it fascinating. Now, first of all, Laura and Steph, you went to college together, right?
Yes, we did. We both went to Stevens College in Columbia, Missouri.
A small college in Columbia, Missouri.
A small women's college in Columbia, Missouri.
Oh, it's all women's college, too?
Yeah.
And there's no men's college that's comparable? No brother college or no?
It's just up the street from Mizzou, so there are men in the area. I actually did happen to meet my husband there. They have a very small percentage of the population that they bring in for their theater and dance programs, and so I nabbed that one up. But, yeah. You
mean they bring over to...
They are students when we were there, they actually got a bachelor's degree from Stevens College because they had to stay
in one major?
Yes, either in theater or dance. If they transferred to a different major, then they were out of there. But
okay, but they found their way over to Stevens from time to time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So you two have both worked in the industry, the fitness industry.
Yes.
And start with your background. How'd you get into it? What did you major in? How'd you get to fitness?
Well, so as we mentioned, we met at Stevens College, and I was a dance major, and the chair of our dance department was also a Pilates instructor and had a studio right on campus. And I went through a couple different injuries as a dancer, and towards the end of my degree was seeing a physical therapist and a Pilates instructor about once a week, just so that I could stay healthy and comfortable enough to finish my degree. And then when I finished with a maybe not so helpful dance degree, I had to decide where I was going to go with that career-wise. And I taught at a dance studio for a year, decided that wasn't really for me, and went on to do my Pilates certification and have been teaching ever since.
Steph?
And as we said, Laura and I were really good friends. I personally I've dove, I've swam, I've done long distance biking, long distance running. But right after we got out of college, I was having a lot of hip and knee pain when I was running. And I was only running about 5 miles a week or 5 miles a day. And Laura said, okay, you got to start doing some Pilates. I lived in Arizona at the time. And so then I started strengthening my hips, strengthening my core. And then all of a sudden, that joint pain went away. And so then I was kind of hooked. And especially being able to help other people find that strength and the reduction in pain, whether they're not flexible enough, not strong enough, things like that, or overly flexible like me. That's really what we love about it.
Okay, so give me the definition. I hear Pilates I feel like I know what it is, and I have no idea what it really is. What is Pilates?
Pilates was designed by Joseph Pilates in World War I, actually. He grew up in Germany, and he had asthma and all kinds of rickets, all kinds of issues. And so he started doing things to help himself get stronger and healthier. And then he moved to England during World War I. He was put in an internment camp. And in that internment camp, he was doing exercises with people every day. He had a series of exercises he did, and he made all of them do those exercises.
Is that right? So he's a prisoner of war?
Yep.
And he stayed fit by doing Pilates. He didn't call it Pilates at the time. He just said, my name's Pilates, and I like to do these things. But whatever it was.
He called it contrology. So he called it the control of your body. And what they discovered was that internment camp wasn't getting sick like the rest of the internment camps were. Some of the other internment camps were having people die and things like that. So they said, there's something here. They pulled him out of the internment camp and had him start rehabilitating soldiers who had been injured. So maybe you lost your arm, but you still have a core, you still have legs, you still have another arm. So he would take springs off of their hospital beds and make them start working the rest of their body. Because if the rest of their body was healthy,
So in essence, he was helping rehabilitate the enemy, though, right? I mean, that was his job, and they can tell you to do whatever you want if you're a prisoner of war.
So he was in an internment camp. He wasn't a soldier, if that makes sense. So he'd already immigrated to England. But then, so it wasn't, for him, it wasn't necessarily enemy. That's technicality there. But he was helping. Because if you get blood flow to your body and you're, again, like you were saying, if you're getting those endorphins, you're feeling better, you're happier, you're going to get better faster.
Okay, but Laura, what do you do when you do Pilates? Is it stretching? What is it?
So it's a little combination. It's a perfect balance, actually, between strength training and flexibility. So like Steph was saying, Joseph created these pieces of equipment that were originally based off hospital beds. So they still kind of look like rudimentary hospital beds. They're a table with springs that you can attach and adjust in multiple different ways. And you do all of these controlled exercises, often slow movements, really focusing on breath work that help, again, work on core stability and then peripheral, so arms, legs, mobility.
So you're stretching
while you're strengthening.
But you're paying attention to how you breathe?
Absolutely, yes.
And there's this conscious effort to pay attention to how you breathe. And it does what for you then? If you stretch, what is the ultimate benefit?
So you're creating strength. So one, the breath helps you to actually do more. If you hold your breath while you're trying to work out, you're going to fatigue pretty quickly and you're not going to be able to do things, right? And then two, it's active stretching. So you're not going to injure yourself. Like if you just stick your foot up on the table and stretch and push, like the cheerleaders that we saw in Denver, that's bad stretching. If you're actively stretching the muscle while the muscle's working, you're actually going to get more benefit and the muscle's going to be stronger in the full length of the muscle. So versus weightlifting where you kind of jerk the weight and you're not going to work the full range of your muscle. With this spring tension that we use, it actually works the full range of motion of the muscle, which also helps to prevent injury.
How long is a workout?
Most of our sessions are 55 minutes. So we do have some clients that come in just for 30-minute sessions.
And how many times a week would you advise them?
We encourage people to do 2 to 3 times a week if they can, whether that's in the studio or at home. But the more you're doing it, the more benefit you'll see. It's not like some of the other high-impact workouts where you really need time off to rest in between. Pilates is really something you could do in theory every day. But we, again, encourage our clients to come in if they can twice a week. Once a week is good, 2 is better.
So, Steph, would the ideal be to do that one day, then the next day go do free weights and Stairmaster? Or, I mean, is there a complementary to this?
So the springs are creating the same weight on your muscles. So we encourage our clients to find other cardio-based workout. We can do some cardio jumping on our reformers.
But your weightlifting has in essence been done for the week.
Correct.
If you come in 3 times.
And an hour session, we're going to work out your entire body. We're not going to just do arms. We're not going to just do upper body or just do legs. We're going to work your entire body over the entire session.
There is no age range on this, but I have Dan Zeman's exercise physiologist. We're talking about balance, and as you age, balance is very important. This plays into that. I take it for those people that are in their senior years.
Absolutely, we do a lot of specific balance work with people. And the great thing about Pilates is that it is a very functional exercise. So if they want to work on their standing balance, we do their exercises while they're standing. And we can create an imbalanced floor, or we can play with that to really focus on their balance work. But again, most of Pilates work is all about your core, which is really your entire abdominal wall and includes your back muscles. And that's where a lot of your stability, your pelvis, your hips, all of that comes from.
Yeah, if you can get the back muscles that does a lot for you across the board, because you get so out of balance once if you've been to Hopkins Health and Wellness, you get so out of balance if you start cheating on your back, don't you? You know what? We'll take a break, come back, and you can explain to me what a Pilates body is, because I've heard that term enough times. Stay with us. Sports to the Max at WCCO. Steph and Laura from Studio 6 and Hopkins are in the studio talking about Pilates and much more. What's a Pilates bod look like, Laura?
Well, we were just discussing this during the break. So Pilates, as we've talked about, that balance of strength and flexibility. And so the side effect of that, the benefit of that, is that it creates long, lean muscles. So still showing tone, but not necessarily bulk.
That's what I think of. I think of long and lean stuff when they say Pilates bod.
Absolutely. And that's why a lot of men think that it's just for women. So a lot of models, a lot of actresses do Pilates in order to maintain that body.
You get models and actresses coming by? I'll sign up. Just tell me which class they're in.
I did train a Miss Universe candidate.
Did you really?
Yeah. And she actually got several compliments on her body when she got there. And that's one of the things is like one of her legs looked fantastic, because we don't just work your quads. We don't just work your hamstrings. We're working your adductors, your abductors. So she had these fantastic legs. So she looked great in a swimsuit. It was very interesting research.
What a shock. A Miss Universe candidate looks great in a swimsuit. So they come in and are some of these people, you were telling me before the break, the lacrosse team came in and trained. I mean, are some of them looking to get better athletically, or are most looking just to get their body feeling good and looking good?
So, like in the instance of my husband is on a lacrosse team, and some of these guys they've blown out their knees, they've had all kinds of injury issues, and so we brought them in and started working on really stabilizing around their joints, which is what Pilates and also gyrotonic, which we do at the studio, is really great at. So it's going to decompress the joints. It's going to strengthen your core. So when you're leaping across the crease and you get hit, you're going to be strong enough to hold yourself to land safely.
Are a lot of people who are trying to lose weight?
We do get a lot of clients who come in intentionally looking to lose weight. And what they'll comment on is that not even necessarily whether they're seeing movement on the scale, but they'll see that their pants fit better, because when you really engage your core, especially your lowest abdominal muscles properly, it almost works like a corset and everything just starts to tighten and pull in. So that's one of the benefits they tend to comment on.
Yeah, I wish we could measure better because we measure ourselves by a scale a lot of times, right? And you can be the exact same weight that you were when you started 6 months later, but if you've changed your body, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it doesn't matter that you're the same weight because you've achieved it, but yet we really haven't come up with anything, maybe waist size, I guess, to an extent. But I mean, you feel better and you're stronger, but we haven't come up with anything really scientifically to show you what's happened, have we?
Right. No. And that was one of the things with Steph and I when we set up our studio, was that when we have clients come in the door, we want them to feel better when they leave the room, when they're done with their
session. And not
session.
just based on how much weight they've lost.
Not just on how they look, but really about how they feel physically and mentally. It should be a positive experience, and they should leave feeling like they had a great session.
And the fantastic thing about Pilates is you can start anywhere. My mom had a really terrible accident, and she had to rehabilitate a bunch of stuff. So we started from very, very rudimentary exercises and built from there. Whereas we've had, very talented athletes who've done all kinds of different training come in, and we can challenge them and bring them to the next level as well. It's very versatile. Where
do we tighten the soonest? Is it hamstrings? Is it lower back? Is it what?
Well, I think it depends on what you're doing in your everyday life. Yeah. So
how about the typical person that sits at a desk a lot of the day?
That's where I was going to go. A lot of our clients who are sitting at a desk come in, and we get a lot of complaints about low back pain, which often is tied to tight hamstrings. So those two kind of go together. Yep. And then when we start doing abdominal work, suddenly that starts to improve and ease some of that discomfort. We also get a lot of upper shoulders, neck complaints. That's where we tend to hold a lot of our stress and tension.
How about the hip flexor?
Absolutely. And then again, is related. So your psoas connects in your back, goes through your pelvis, and then becomes one of your hip flexors. So sometimes you might find that you have really tight low back pain, but it's actually your hip flexor. So we do most of our classes, we end with a lunge that's a stretching lunge where we're opening up the hip flexor. And a lot of people that sit all day long, that's their favorite thing to do all day. And we remind people that you can do that anytime. But, I think especially people are moving to standing desks and things like that, which really do improve your back pain.
Yeah, I do that lunges with weights, where I low weights and I take the lunge, and that's really helped me with my hip flexor. Which is just what you're talking about there, stretching it out, and then it gets your butt and it gets everything else too. And you can always tell if you do it right the next day because you can feel it.
Absolutely.
Now the yoga, that's another thing I've never understood, even though I kind of understand it. What do you get out of yoga?
You get a lot of the same benefits from yoga and Pilates and gyrotonic. And one of the key pieces and elements that bring them all together that make them look similar is that most of that work is based on breath work. So in yoga classes, I tend to spend a little bit more time on focused breathing. We'll often start a session with focused breath work, whether that's counting your breath or even just kind of quiet meditation. And then standing movements, stretches, there's an element of strength and flexibility in yoga as well. Great balance work for any of the clients who are nervous about falls. So in that regard, people often see them as very similar. Pilates has its own equipment. Yoga, we don't normally use equipment. Sometimes we'll use small props, right? Sometimes we'll use a band or a bolster, but it's really you and a mat.
Let's just say, you did 40 minutes of yoga or 40 minutes of Pilates. Which one do you come out of there, which is a better workout for you?
They're both very different. So yoga does have a very strong mind-body connection. And people who do yoga solely on a regular basis oftentimes do it because of that mind connection. It reduces their anxiety. It helps them to focus in. Sometimes we're so busy in day-to-day rushing around doing all kinds of things. Whereas our Pilates classes, people will chit-chat through them. It's not as focused internally.
If somebody came to you and they said, and this does go hand in hand, and I think it's an epidemic, and it's anxiety, that term. And a lot of people look for drugs as the quick fix, and I've often thought, last resort, What would you prescribe to them that you would, not a drug, but what would you tell them if they're saying, I just got so much anxiety in my life? Would you go Pilates, yoga? What would you do?
I would have them start with breathing exercises and also doing some meditation.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think our first go-to is just a slow counted breath exercise. And I have clients who do have anxiety issues and have even brought their kids in just to learn the breath work from yoga specifically, because it does help just decrease anxiety, mental health in general. It helps improve.
Do people learn how to do yoga for just say maybe 10 minutes before they've got some stress situation? Do you learn that? Do you master that as you go along?
You can. I've given clients almost yoga homework like that and taught them a sequence, whether that's a client who's traveling and won't be in the studio. I've put together different sequences based on what they're specifically looking for. I taught a teen class this summer and I taught them all a yoga sequence that they could do pre-game, post-game to get just that brief, good yoga experience, though, can help you play better mentally and physically.
Steph, if you wanted to, you could do any exercise and you could jack it up to about 90 degrees in the room and you'll sweat. Now, or you could go 50 degrees and you won't feel it. But when you do the 90 degrees, you feel like, man, did I get a workout in? Does sweating more help reduce anxiety and stress level more?
So when you sweat, it does release some toxins in your body. You're probably talking to the wrong person on this one because I was gifted from my dad the sweat gene, so I can sweat very easily when I'm working out. And there's a whole deeper thing into yoga about who should do hot yoga exercises and who shouldn't. There's different doshas that should and should not do
hot
and
yoga. Which is a different thing, but yeah.
So for me, if it's a cool day, like as we're getting into this cool fall days, I can go out and run 5 miles and feel fantastic. If it's middle of the summer, I can go out. I'm not going to run as fast. I'm going to feel terrible afterwards. And I don't necessarily personally feel like I've gotten as good of a workout. That's me and that's my body. I would always, for me, prefer to work in a cooler state because I feel like I can do more and I'm stronger at the end.
Laura.
And I don't have anything against hot yoga. I actually enjoy doing that. That's my sister's favorite kind of
Why do you do hot yoga instead of yoga for that very reason that I just described?
Right. Yes. So
because people feel like
people want to sweat, and kind of a hot button issue right now in the yoga community too. Whether hot yoga is safe or whether that's a huge benefit,
what would
and
be
we
the
should
downside?
be doing it.
Dehydration or?
Well, there are some health concerns. Anyone who's pregnant probably should not be in a heated room doing yoga. Blood pressure issues.
I see.
Any of those kind of more sensitive.
But
body
assuming you're healthy enough.
Mm-hmm. It is good for working out and getting a sweat. And you leave there and you feel like you just worked out for 2 hours, even if you just did a 45-minute workout. So it is, I think, a much more challenging 45-minute, 60-minute class. But as we've discussed, it's not for everyone.
Yeah, and it's a good tired you get out of that. And I love I use that term good tired where because I work out first thing in the morning always as best I can. And the rest of the day, if I've worked out hard, there's kind of a relaxed, good, tired. My theory is there's going to be enough things to stress and enough people that are going to screw up my day. I deal with enough idiots that are going to screw up my day. I got to be ready for that. So it doesn't guarantee you success. It doesn't guarantee you, but it gives you another edge, another advantage, another something as you go through the day.
And if you are not very flexible, that heat is going to help to open up your muscles.
Sure, yeah.
So that'd be a fantastic thing to try if you're somebody that's not very flexible.
And most people that come in are seeking flexibility, weight loss. What would be priority number one when they come to Studio 6?
I think some people are trying to, if they already have a fitness routine and they've gotten an injury, we get a lot of people that are trying to rehab from those injuries. We have some people that are just trying to try something that's a little bit gentler on their body and ease themselves into an exercise routine. I think those are probably the two most common things that we have come in.
And we also just have a handful of clients who, no matter how they ended up with Pilates, have just recognized it as something they can do for the rest of their lives. And
Okay,
because it is gentler
and that's
on
how I
the
want to
body.
end this thing is that the one thing that I've learned in life, and if you only hear one thing that we say here tonight, is you are never too old to work out. And so many people shut down just because they're 40 or they're 35 or they're 50 or they're 60 or they're whatever. And you don't have to. And even if you've got some injuries or some issues, there are still workouts that you can do that will make you feel better and keep you healthier and make you, i.e., happier and less stress. Correct?
Yes, we tell people all the time, never stop moving.
A 93-year-old working out at the health club the other day,
Yeah,
And
movement
it's-
is medicine.
It's so much easier to maintain that throughout. So if you're, say you're 60 and you just start now, it's so much easier to start at 60 than it's going to be when you're 80.
So think of
But
it that
it's
way, right?
much easier to maintain that as you age. And then, then you'll be my 78-year-old client showing up the 22-year-old guys.
Sure. And, I see the other thing that is another fallacy is you can build your muscle much longer. People used to think, well, you can't build your muscle after a certain. That's not true. If you lift, if you engage, if you do things, you can build your muscles. Correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. There's no, and you do have to work to maintain. I think it is harder as you age to maintain
Sure it is.
things,
But that's a fun challenge.
and you also have more time to work on maintaining.
That's right. That's one of the benefits of being in retirement for those people that get there. Yeah. So if you go to Studio 6, it's in Hopkins, not far from the big giant raspberry, right?
Correct. 1 block away.
1 block away. And you can stop by anytime, make a reservation, look you up online at studio6.com. What do we got?
We're studio6wellness.com, and we're also on the Mind Body app, and you can find any of our classes and our private availability on there.
Thanks for coming in.